Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and you're watching The Broken Meeple. This is a YouTube channel about board games where I give reviews, top 10s and my honest opinions, regardless of the consequences. We'll get on with the show in just a minute, but first a quick word from my sponsor. As a fellow gamer, you'll understand this is unacceptable. The solution? Head down to my new sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk. KIENDA stocks many of the hot new releases as well as some old hidden gems. Free delivery on orders over £30, further discounts on bulk purchases, and even 5% of your spending refunded back to you as points to be used for further discounts down the line. If you use the referral link in the description below and sign up for a new account, you'll get 5% discount on your first order over £60. So let's make gaps in your collection a thing of the past. Get down to KIENDA and start saving today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of the video.
Get on with it.
So today we're delving into the powers of foresight and going into Precognition. This was one of my most anticipated games from Essen, mostly because of its concept. The cover looks cool, but we've seen it before. The name Precognition? Okay, something different. Not familiar necessarily with these designers. Ludonaught Games have done some pretty good stuff, including lately with Living Forest, remember the Kennerspiel, and that was all well and good. But what really drew me to this was the card system it had. It has a unique, what they call dual select system, a new way of handling cards for the resources and whatever you're getting during the game that made me go, ooh, that's different. Again, slightly innovative. Yeah, we've done card drafting systems before, but this just felt really different. The question is it interesting? And is it easy enough to learn for being so different? Well, that's what we're here to find out. So in Precognition, it's a very simple goal. It is whoever has the most healthy humans wins. You're basically on an arc. Throughout the game, the round tracker is traveling over this river to various spots, and what you're doing in each of the rounds is, by way of this dual select system, you are obtaining and giving cards which allow you to gain various resources. So the four main things that you can grab are humans in general, which will be contaminated and need healing. You'll be able to grab food, which you need to feed them. You'll be able to grab these green alien dudes who are called Ymune, spelt Y-M-U-N-E. It took me a while to realise it actually meant immune, as in immune to contagion, but, pretty clever. But basically, aliens is the best way to do it. And batteries, which batteries can go on these little machines which you power, and based on what cards you've played during a round can get you little additional bonuses. Now this is where you need your thinking caps on for the dual select system. You will have two cards in your hand already. This is a keep card, which represents the card that you're going to keep for the round for yourself. You'll have two to use. You have a give card, which is the card you're going to give back to your left-hand neighbour. And then you will have two cards that you're going to pass to the right-hand neighbour. The idea being that the cards that you pass to your right, one of those you're going to get back in the next round. You don't know which of the two, but you're going to get one of them, and you know what two you passed over. So you're almost trying to predict, well, I reckon next turn I'm going to have that. So if I have that to play with, what card do I want to keep then and use in conjunction with that? But of course, you also need to think about your left-hand neighbour because they're expecting one of two cards back, and you're thinking, well, I don't know if I want to give you that card. Maybe I should keep this one for myself and give you the other one. An interesting little thing like that. So what you'll do is at the start of your turn, you'll draw two cards from your deck. These will go into your hand. You will also already have two cards that were given to you by your left-hand neighbour face up below your board. What you'll do is essentially you'll collect all the cards together and you'll play three separate pairs. Let's clear this out of the way for the moment and move this down a bit so I can kind of showcase this. And any card you play from your hand originally that wasn't below your board is face down, and these two will be face up. So for example, I might play a hand that is like so. So I will do this, and we'll go for this, and we'll go for this. Okay, so I got three pairs of cards here. Four of them are face down, two of them are face up, and then everybody reveals simultaneously once they've done. You reveal, and then you allocate the cards based on what pairs you chose. So this one I'm giving back to my left-hand neighbour. So I move this to the top give space above his board. So just assume that this is like my neighbour's board here in a sense. So I would put it there. Then with this one, I'm choosing to keep this card. So you've already just received a card from your right-hand neighbour that goes here. The keep card you put above your board there. So these are the two cards you have in the round. And then these two you give to your right-hand neighbour who put it below their board here in order to say, right, well, I know I'm going to get one of these two next round. Which one's it going to be?
Oh no, I've gone cross-eyed.
Trust me, there's an easier way to explain it, which we'll get onto a bit later. But what these cards do is they get you the resources and humans, as I mentioned before. But if you can get the two of the same color, so here I've got 2 yellow, for example, any card that you activate will also get a bonus below it. So you've got the top bonus normally and the bottom one if they match the colors. But you don't have to activate both cards. When you've got them below, the bottom number is a cost in humans that it takes in order to go out on the expedition, shall we say. Here, I've got a nice cheap pair. One of them is 0 and one of them is 1. If you activate only one card, it's free. Doesn't matter what the cost is. You're foregoing one card entirely, but you get the bonuses of one, you don't have to pay any humans for it. But if I want to activate both, I've got to pay the total cost of the 2 cards. Here, it's only 1 human. Okay, whatever. 1 human becomes contaminated. But it could be as high as like 3, 6, it could be a lot of humans, depending on what cards you've picked. So I choose to activate both. I get free food as per the top bonuses on the cards, but then I also get 2 other humans, so great. I found 2 other humans, and I get a battery. Oh great. I could put it on one of these machines. And these machines basically, in the beginner mode, just tell you, oh well, did I place out a yellow card and something of a different color, in which case I generate a green alien. It's stuff like that. But you can also play in a harder mode where the machines are basically asymmetric among all the players and they have sort of different requirements and different rewards. But for your first game, definitely play with the standard. We'll get onto that in a minute. So that's essentially how the card system works, and this will rinse repeat throughout all the rounds in the game. Each round you will flip over a tile and it will either give you a resource or tell you need to spend some resources. And when you get to the big tiles, you then have to feed your people, 1 food for every human that you've got on your ship, but then, or 1 every healthy human. And later on in the game, as you go for your deck, you'll also have to contend with Bane, which is kind of like the evil darkness of the world in a sense. And these aliens can protect you from it, but if you can't protect yourself enough, then again, more humans die out. By the time the ship gets all the way to the end, you need to total up how many healthy humans you've got in your cabin that aren't contaminated, and the one with the most. Of course! Right, hope you kept up with me for that, because this is the slight Achilles heel of this game. Now, I really love this card system. This card system is great. It's new, it's different, and it keeps me interested in what the other players are doing. Now granted, with 4 players, that 4th player is kind of a waste because they're opposite me and I have no dealings with them. So this is definitely sweet spot for 3 players. But wow, I love the idea that when I've got these cards, I've got to make a decision not only what I want, but I've also got to think about the 2 neighbors. I've got to think, well, I'm giving you this card. But if I give you that card, you're likely going to pay a green, which means that if I give you the green, you're going to get all this nice stuff. So maybe I should hang on to this one? And if so, do I want to hang on to it to play in a later turn, or am I going to choose to give it to the other person? You have to give them one of their cards back, but the one you don't give back, do it you like. You know what? You can have this yellow card back. This one's going over here. He's going to my right neighbor, and I'm going to hang on to these ones. Of course, your other neighbor's thinking the same thing for you. With the 2 cards you give to your right-hand neighbor, you got to think about, well, okay, so what do I want on my next turn? Well, let's see, I've got this card I could hang on to. I would really like some aliens in a minute, so you know what, I'm going to give you this green card. In fact, I'm going to give you both of these green cards, so I know I'm getting a green back on my next turn. And then when I come to draw more cards and look at what I've got to offer, it's like, well, that one triggers with that machine if I play that in conjunction with a green card, but then I also have a green card in my hand. I know I'm getting green, so maybe I should keep this one for the round. It's stuff like that. But of course, your opponent picks one of the 2, you don't know which one you're getting back. The high cost, the low cost, the one with the bonus, the one without, who knows? And then of course you've got to think about what you're keeping generally. I mean, I really need to play this card and get some more batteries. Fine, well this is the one I'm keeping for the round. Hopefully it combines with what else I'm doing, but all these decisions that you make with the card system are so cool. I find it just really interesting, really engaging. I love these games where you got to get into the heads of other people.
What am I, psychic?
I'm not directly screwing over your resources. I'm not taking your food or doing take that or anything, but I care about what you're aiming for. Do I reckon you're going to grab more batteries? Do I reckon you're going to grab more humans? In which case, which card do I give you? Which do I not give you? Which one do I reckon you're going to get back as a result? These considerations all require you to understand your neighbors, and that is brilliant. I really enjoy that. But explaining this card system is very difficult because it's very different. The rulebook does an admirable job of trying to explain it. There is even a video that you can find if you scan the QR code on the back with a video representation of how it works. So credit to Ludinaut, they're trying to make you understand this. It's still not easy though. You play this with light gamers, they're likely to trip up on this mechanic a lot. And the main reason is because the rulebook, I kid you not, when it talks about like what you do with this, it talks about you taking all the cards into your hand, like so, having the 2 cards for choices and that, basically having 2 of either side, so 2 cards either side of the keep and choice cards, and then you've got to make your 3 pairs simultaneously, which is very difficult to do when some of them have got to be face up and face down, so you're almost doing it under the table as such. But then of course, you put them in your hand, and then you forget which ones were the ones down here and which ones weren't. This confuses people. If you're not good with your left and right as to who you got to give to your left and what you got to give to your right, it's going to confuse people a lot. This is why I'm about to give you the Broken Meeple approved way of teaching this game.
Wingus, dingus, listen up.
Do not take everything into your hand. Here's your board. You've got 2 cards below it that were given to your neighbor. Okay, right? Here's your keep and give card. Here's your deck, right? This is how you do each round. You draw 2 from your deck into your hand. You then put the 2 face-up cards here face up in front of you, okay? So wherever you want to put it. So face up here, for example, okay? Leave them there face up, right? Do not put them in your hand. This does a couple of things. Firstly, you've got less in your hand to deal with, okay? Secondly, you know that everything that comes out of your hand now is face down. You don't have to fiddle, oh, is that one face up or that one face down? I don't know. And it doesn't really matter if these are in your hand or not because your opponent gave them to you. So he knows what they are. They're face up. They're public information. So why put them in your hand? It just simplifies things so much. Because now all I have to do is go, right, well, let's see. I'm going to keep that card. I'm going to give these 2 to my right-hand neighbor. And I'm going to give these 2 back to the other player. Sweet. And then as soon as you reveal, everything's in place. The amount that speeds up the teaching and speeds up each play is phenomenal. Once I started doing that, it became a lot easier. But if you go by the word of the book, you know, if you do it exactly as the book tells you, you're gonna run into some issues. So believe me, take that as a Broken Meeple top tip. You know, once you get used to teaching it, then it works. With that being said, the game is very simple other than that mechanic. Everything else you do in the game, like triggering the machines and running through the maintenance phase, it's all on the cards, it's all crystal clear. I mean, this game is relatively light in terms of its mechanics and rules overhead. Once you get the card system in place, everything else is a doddle. You know, the idea that, right, okay, so humans are basically my currency. I want to activate these 2 cards. Okay, fine. Let's see, that's going to cost me 4 humans if I do both, none if I do just 1. Okay, well, I'm going to do 4. Okay, so 4, do it, get the stuff, maintenance phase. Right, I've got 3 aliens in my infirmary here. I heal 3 humans. Great. I've got the batteries. Right, well, I played a red and a yellow. I've got that machine, gives me a food. Check. You know, it's so easy to run through the rest of the game. The round tracker's easy. You just flip a tile and do what it says. Nice and easy. The card actions are not complicated. They're basically just getting you one of the 4 main types of resources in various quantities. And if you match the colors, great. That's all it is. It's super, super simple in that regard once you get the card system taught. And that's credit where it's due because it means that I can teach this now to a lot of players. Not brand new gamers, do not put gateway gamers in front of this, believe me, but I reckon that there is something here for light gamers and something here for heavy gamers as well. Aesthetics wise, beautiful. I mean, the tiles are fairly basic artwork. They're just a round tracker at the end of the day. You know, this whole like river system here, it's fairly basic, but really the aesthetics comes from your board, which is nice. It's got like, you know, cutout bits for the tracking your bane and your food levels. You've got multiple of these machines. I mean, most of these are, you know, they're standard on one side, but then the other side is all asymmetric. Every single one is different, and you can give out 2 of these asymmetric each time. These are cool tiles. This is a good board. The card quality is good. I've sleeved mine because obviously you're doing a lot of passing and that, but the artwork on this card is gorgeous. I mean, I love the artwork here.
Ooh, you good looking. You're hot.
The theme is neither here or there. I mean, you're saving humans, fair enough. I mean, the theme is slightly abstracted, but you're still going to be staring at each card going, ooh, that is nice. Ooh, that is, ooh. Feels like something I would expect to see out of a story-based narrative game, but it's just in a simple card game. They do look really nice. Gotta give props to the aesthetics and the component quality. You know, aside from this cheap little shit marker that you use to track the round. Nothing in here felt cheap and nasty.
I feel like I'm gonna break this damn thing.
Now, Precognition has 3 separate modes that you can play, and this usually garnishes the reaction of "Get out! Get out of there!" Yeah, I'm usually more of the side that takes that a game should have 1 mode that works brilliantly, not 3 modes that work okay or bad each. Because usually you feel like the design time and development has been stretched too thin at that point. Here you can play this competitively, in teams, or co-op. Again, this had me worried. Now, the competitive way is the main way to play this, I feel. The standard, all against all, competitive fashion, that is the main standard game. It's the way to play it, in my opinion, and it's also where the development time has clearly gone. The teams mode is simply an alternative way to play 4-player, and honestly, I think the teams mode's actually pretty good. If I'm playing with 4, this is the way I want to play it. Because remember, I said that the 4th player opposite you has no bearing on you whatsoever. Because, well, what difference does it make? I don't pass anything to you and I don't get anything from you. So what's the point? With teams mode, you have 2 players alongside each other and 2 opposite. And the winning team is the team's total healthy humans, which is quite cool. But you're still passing cards around this in both directions in normal, which is interesting because it means that for the person sitting on the right of the 2-player team, the cards I'm giving to my left have to help my neighbor. But the ones I'm giving to the player on my right are obviously ones that I want to get back. But for the person on the left, the cards that they're getting from me, like on the right-hand side, are like, I hope this is going to help me because I need this. But then they're responsible for giving duff cards to the other team. So it's kind of like you're splitting the roles. One of you is playing to hurt the opposing team and the other one is playing to help your neighbor. It's a cool concept, and honestly, if I'm playing this with 4, we're doing that every single game. Although I do recommend that the person doing the helping the neighbor part of the game is the one that's most experienced. It's a lot easier to tell what card not to give someone than what card to give someone, I feel. But that's a minor blemish. It's just something to bear in mind rather than actually a downside. But yeah, 4-player team mode's actually pretty cool. The co-op mode is probably my weak link of the game, but it's not to say the co-op mode is bad. It's just not as interesting, I think, as competitive. Essentially, you go through a slightly different river track, and as you go to each point, there's objectives where a player or all players need to have a certain amount of stuff on their board, and if you fail one, you fail the whole mission, but otherwise you got to keep going and survive to the end. It's fine. It works. It's a little bit more fiddly in some places, but personally, after trying it, I'm kind of like, yeah, just play the competitive version. But at least it's not like, oh, the co-op mode is terrible. There might even be some people out there who prefer it to the competitive mode, in which case, great. You've got a better way of playing the game. But for me, and this is coming from someone who loves co-op modes in games, I feel that the co-op mode here wasn't really necessary. All against all, or 4-player team, and you're in with a good shout. The variety in this game is actually not bad either. I mean, these machines, if you play the basic version all the time, then yeah, the game's going to play out fairly similarly. But if you're willing to switch up and play with the advanced sides that have all sorts of different asymmetrical effects that are not identical to any other machine layout, there's some really cool stuff here, and these key off more about what cards not only that you kept, but also what you gave your left neighbor. So it increases the complexity of, ooh, hang on, it's not just a case of giving you a card you don't want, it's a case of, well, you probably do want this card, but if I give you a card that costs 4 or more, I get an extra bonus. That's worth considering. So it is cool that you've got quite a lot of these. I mean, that's not including the 2 I've got down here. There's a lot of these boards you can get from. That's pretty good variety. The cards themselves are a bit more of a weaker link because yes, each deck is technically asymmetrical, but you would barely be able to tell. If you inspect the decks in detail, you will notice that, like looking at the stage 1 cards in isolation, there are differences between all 4 decks. But it's not like you pick a deck and go, this one's heavy on batteries, this one's heavy on food or anything. They're just slightly different layouts, slightly different colors in places, but it's still balanced decks. So you shouldn't have a game where you see nothing but yellow cards. They should still be in there. It's just a case that one yellow card might give you these bonuses, one yellow card might give you these bonuses. It's not noticeable as a difference, but I am glad that they didn't just make them completely identical. There's very little variation with these tiles. I mean, you've got 4 in each of the rounds, like 4 in each of the eras of the game. You pick 3 out of 4, but again, you'll barely notice the difference. You know, it's just there to add a little bit of variety. So it's not amazing, but in certain aspects, it's done really well. So Precognition, I think, is a really clever game. This card system, this dual select system, feels new and fresh. Yes, it uses some aspect of drafting that we've seen before, but the idea that I care about the left and the right neighbour for a change, because normally in something like Seven Wonders, I care about who I'm passing the cards to. I don't give monkeys about who just passed them to me. That's not important. The fact you gotta go both ways, though, is very different and very unique. So I would say innovative in a way. Yes, it's a little bit harder to teach that system, but if you follow my idea that we used earlier in the video, trust me, it becomes a lot easier. But you're probably gonna need a few rounds to get used to that system because it is very different. But when this game gets going, it's firing on a lot of cylinders. It's got very interesting tactical gameplay, very interesting getting into the minds of your opponents type deal. It will get a little bit samey if you just play with the standard machines, and unfortunately I wouldn't recommend playing with the fancy machines in games with new players. So the variety aspect is kind of there, but it's not entirely there, and there's not a huge amount of variety with these tiles either. So it's not that the replay value is non-existent, it's just it's hit and miss in areas. But the artwork is fantastic, the components are still really good. I like these meeples, I like these little alien meeples, but everything in the game is smooth and elegant once you get the hang of this card system. It's the one bit that can, fluster people a bit. But everything else, the maintenance phase and what you're doing and get most humans, nice and easy, simple to understand, and you've got a player aid at the back of the book. You've got two very good player aids once you get the hang of the iconography in here. It's just a really cool, clever game, and I like seeing games like this. Something that gives me something fresh, and in this case, it works. Really, really enjoy this one. Not perfect, not quite at the top level, but I gotta give credit where it's due and give this one a 9 out of 10. This is getting a seal of distinction for me. I think if you want a card game with, a tactical card game that feels different, feels fresh, yet looks the part, isn't too expensive, and yet is simple enough for most people to get into once you've got the hang of the card system, then this one is definitely one you want to check out. 9 out of 10, really, really enjoyed this. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. I'm Luke Hector, and if you like what you see, please remember to like this video on YouTube and on Board Game Geek, but also share it on social media, consider the Patreon, but most of all, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you like the sound of this dual select system? Have you had experience of the game? Was it positive or negative? Let us all know in the comments. Anything else by Ludonaut you're interested in? How would you develop this game via an expansion? Certainly I wouldn't say no to an expansion for this game to add some other cool elements or maybe some more asymmetrical cards. That'd be pretty cool, but let's just enjoy the game for what it is for now. Let's not rush these things, okay? But still, want to know your thoughts. Until next time, you can check out more content on the channel, including the first impressions I did for Deal with the Devil, the big game from CGE, but also I'd like you to check out a recent live stream I did with Brandon from All Aboard Gamer, where we spent 3 hours talking about our top 10 overrated games. Ready to make some enemies? There's a few we made, but it's all in jest and good fun. So take care, and remember as always, regardless of who you're passing your cards to, it's still only a game. Bye for now.
What am I, psychic?